It's National Quiet Day. Should we be quiet today?
Huh? Did you say something? What? What?
Yeah, not National Hard of Hearing Day. Quiet. Like when you're an Amtrak guy, you're an Amtrak veteran.
Yep.
Do you like the quiet car? Because I hate it.
I like the idea of the quiet car. What I don't like is the quiet car police. That if you say anything at all, 10 people come up and want to throw you off the train. You're back off, Sparky.
I want to swing on somebody. I want to go Juwan Howard on somebody at that point.
Good reference. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, are Kyler Murray and the Cardinals back on the same page? Could DeMar DeRozan win MVP? And what should Georgetown do about Patrick Ewing? But we begin today with James Harden's debut as a Philadelphia 76er. They play tonight in Minnesota against the Timberwolves, who beat Memphis last night. That's a good win. Wilbon, what do you expect from the Sixers in Harden's first game with them tonight?
Well, Tony, I expect them to, sort of be, wading around, trying to figure each other out a little bit, particularly Embiid and Harden. No amount of practices, is going to get you ready for that. But the thing I'm really curious about is just specifically with Harden, and it's this. Are we going to see the James Harden, who was a 35-point scorer in Houston, and came out and said, I'm establishing myself, this is my spot, and here's how we're going to roll? Or do we get the Harden from last year when Kyrie Irving said to him, sort of famously, you be the point guard. I know that nominally I'm the point guard, you're the point guard. And, of course, Harden went out and averaged like 11 assists a game, and you and I firmly believed he was the MVP for that period in the league before he got hurt. So which one of those guys are we going to see? And can you be a hybrid? So I'm really fascinated by that dynamic.
I think this is James Harden's last chance. I do. I think that people have soured on James Harden because he quit in Houston and he quit in Brooklyn. And if he fails here or if he quits again, I think he'll ultimately end up on a team like Sacramento with no title chances, some team like that. I just think that, like with Ben Simmons, not his last chance. It's a reboot for Ben Simmons.
Right.
But
Agreed.
with Harden, at 31 years old, you run out of teams, you run out of chances. And this is what I think is going to happen, Mike. I think he's going to be great. Absolutely great. Just like he was last year when we both thought he was the best guard in basketball and could have and maybe should have been the MVP. I think he's going to be so great because Doc Rivers has coached great players before in tandem. He'll figure out a way to get Embiid and Harden working together. Embiid's going to love it because unlike Simmons, Harden will shoot so everybody won't collapse on Joel Embiid. Mike, I'm going way out on a limb here. I think they're going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they're going to win it. I think they're going to be in the NBA Finals because of James Harden.
Wow. Tony, I'm not going to try to argue against any of that because I, like you, think they have all the elements. And obviously now, look, if you're a coach, Doc Rivers has been coaching for a long time. If you get the two players, you don't need a super team. You don't need a big three. You got the two of them. You got Embiid playing like he's been playing this season, and you've got a Harden who, Tone, if there's not the greatest sense of urgency in his career, then we will have both miscalculated. And I agree with you entirely. I won't say it's his last chance, but it's his best chance right now, this year and next year, and it starts tonight. Let's move to the Bulls, retaking first place in the Eastern Conference by beating the Hawks last night. DeMar DeRozan scored 37, including 12 in the fourth quarter, 5 in the final minute to lead the Bulls to victory. It was DeRozan's 8th consecutive game, scoring 35 or more, while shooting 50% or better from the floor, extending an all-time record he set last week. Tone, does DeMar DeRozan, a name we never mentioned in this context, deserve serious consideration for MVP?
Absolutely he does. I don't understand, Mike, why you're always saying it's Joel Embiid's. I don't know what he has done that is so spectacular. He's on a third-place team. DeMar DeRozan is on a first-place team. DeMar DeRozan, I know you know these numbers. Chicago was 31-41 last year without DeRozan. They're 39-21 with DeRozan, and he is the main new addition. He's averaging 28 points a game. He's shooting 51% from the field. Mike, DeMar DeRozan is doing this year for the Bulls what Chris Paul did last year for the Phoenix Suns when we both thought he was a legitimate MVP candidate. So I definitely think he is. with Paul out now, with so many stars hurt, and with Milwaukee and Philadelphia behind Chicago, I think it's DeRozan. Here's what I think hurts DeRozan. Although he was a good player on Toronto and a good player on San Antonio, he's never been on a championship team. And famously, Toronto traded him for Kawhi, and then they won. And I think that has landed on DeRozan unfairly.
Yeah, Tone, I agree with you. I was, trying to explain to the Bulls fanatic I live with, my son, who says, DeRozan, why isn't DeRozan getting more chatter? And I say, here's why, Matthew. There's a run-up. This is not a Lifetime Achievement Award, and maybe that's wrong, but it's real. There's a run-up to MVP. I mean, even Chris Paul, who finished early in his career, finished second, I think, to Kobe, even there was a run-up for him. And, Tony, now, sadly, that Chris Paul's, more or less out of this because he's going to miss the rest of the regular season. It's Embiid and DeRozan. And, look, I'll take DeRozan over Embiid right now with the tiebreaker being first place versus whatever the Phillies in third or fourth or maybe fifth seed right now.
Third place.
So I'll do that, Tony. Yeah. And by the way, DeRozan right now is on the list. When you combine the 35 points with 50% shooting, Tony, the list is Wilt. Who has that? Not in the get-up era. The list is Wilt Chamberlain.
Let me give you another list. And that is people who have done this. He's the seventh player to go 35 or 35 plus in 8 straight games. And when you say the list is Wilt, people don't really get that. They'll get this list. The other 6 are Wilt, Elgin Baylor, Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, and James Harden. Wow. And this guy, by the way, last night, he shoots twos. He doesn't shoot threes. He doesn't miss. He was 15 to 21 last night.
Yeah.
15 to 21. He's the MVP for me, but I don't vote and you do. We move now to Georgetown, which was once a very, very big deal in college basketball. The Hoyas lost their 17th game in a row last night when they were beaten at home by DePaul, which was also a very, very big deal in college basketball once upon a time. Georgetown is now 6-21 overall, 0-16 in the Big East. They're coached by their greatest player, Patrick Ewing. Wilbon, you have a long history with Patrick Ewing. Do you expect Georgetown to ride this out with Ewing?
Tone, I think they could, despite the numbers and what might happen at other places, big schools, big state schools and not small privates, when you lose like this. And you're right, it's a long history. I've known Patrick Ewing my entire life and his entire life. And there are times now, to be honest, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm objective or detached. I will drop a text to Patrick after a particularly big win, like in the tournament last year, or particularly difficult loss. Because I know him in that way. I root for him. Patrick Ewing, the faces of Georgetown have been John Thompson, Patrick Ewing, and now more recently Allen Iverson. But in our time, John Thompson, Patrick Ewing.
That's right.
And Patrick Ewing has been the heartbeat of Georgetown basketball. And so I know this losing is historic. Tony, the volume of it makes you go, oh my goodness, how long are they going to stay with him? And that chatters around. I'm part of some of those text chains. I root for him. I hope they will. I hope he can turn his way around and fight his way out of this. I do.
Makes me sad. This story makes me sad. The disintegration into irrelevance by Georgetown makes me sad. I loved it when Georgetown and Maryland were winning championships with John Thompson and Gary Williams. Georgetown fired John Thompson III. Hope the people who wanted that are happy now. They fired him, the son of the most important person ever in Georgetown basketball history. And they fired him. They brought in Patrick Ewing. They kept it in the family. It appears to be too large for Patrick Ewing right now. The program is sinking. He's foundering. I understand these things. But I don't think that Georgetown can or should get rid of Patrick Ewing. I don't think they can. Because he is that important to the history of Georgetown basketball. Now, he could quit, Mike. He could quit. But if you walk out now, you'll never be a head coach again anywhere. You'll end up in the NBA as an assistant. So I hope he rides it out, and I hope it works. But I'm not sure, and neither are you. We're not sure.
Patrick Ewing, he doesn't quit. I don't see that. And sometimes, yes, you can say, you know what, I want to do this for the good of my alma mater. It's his alma mater. He's not some outsider. He's helped define the history of that program largely. So we're together on this too, Tony. I hope he can turn it around. I hope there's a miracle in there.
Let's take a break. But coming up, number 5, Kansas meets number 10, Baylor tomorrow. And we will ask Jay. We have a big Saturday in college hoops, which makes it a great time to welcome back our dear friend, the unabashedly bald Jay Billis. And let's start with this. You're in Waco for number 5 Kansas at number 10 Baylor. Which of these two teams are you more bullish on right now before they play?
Kansas. Baylor is undefeated this year when they have a full roster, but they don't have a full roster right now. L.J. Cryer has missed 8 of the last 9 games. I'm not sure whether he's going to play against Kansas. That's how difficult it's been. And they lost their big guy, Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua, for the season. He was injured against Texas, and he's their best defender. He's a great ball screen defender. He can guard a point guard coming off a ball screen and stay in front of him, and he's a good rebounder, and he really runs the floor, so they're without him. I think that really takes Baylor down a notch. It doesn't mean they can't win. They can. But Kansas may not be as talented as Bill Self's Final Four and national championship teams this year, but they're legit. And Jalen Wilson is really starting to come around where he's their best rebounder and excellent in transition, can really pass it. And then Ochai Agbaji and Christian Brown have been great all year. Brown's as versatile a player as there is in the college game for a wing. And Abaji's averaging 20 points a game, and he's the best three-point shooter in the Big 12.
Jay, it sounds insane to suggest for a second that Kentucky can fly under the radar for most of the season. They're ranked 6th, playing against number 18 Arkansas. But every time I watch Kentucky, I'm like, my goodness, they look like Kentucky to me. Are they that good, and why have they not gotten more attention to this point?
Kentucky's really good. And the weird part, Michael, is in years past under John Calipari, we'd be talking about how young they are, and with so many freshmen, integrating freshmen, getting them to play together and all that stuff. They're super talented, but how's it going to go? But this is the oldest team that Kentucky's had in 40 years. And it's ridiculous. John doesn't teach him he doesn't have to teach him how to shave. And he says it's great. Everybody's on time. And he doesn't have to do the little things with these guys. They have a number of transfers. So integrating all the different transfers into one cohesive unit happened quicker than I thought it would. Their age and experience was probably helpful in that. But they've had some injury issues, too. They've had Xavier Wheeler out at times. Ty Washington has been out. But they've found ways to win. And one of the reasons is Kellen Grady, the transfer from Davidson, who can really shoot it. I mean, he's playing great. He had 28 points the other day when those two guards were out. And Davion Mintz has taken over the point guard spot while Xavier Wheeler and Ty Washington have been out. I don't know when those guys are going to be back. I think there's a little hesitancy to put them back in there and just save them for the stretch run a little bit. But Kentucky's as good as anybody. When they're healthy, they are as good as anybody.
Let's stay in the SEC, Jay. And Bruce Pearl, of course, returns to Knoxville, where Tennessee's already beaten Arizona and Kentucky. I mean, should we be paying a little bit more attention to the Volunteers at this point? And do you like how they match up with Auburn?
I do like how they match up because Tennessee is really good on the defensive end. They are gritty and they're tough, and they make things really difficult for you to get out in transition, and they're difficult to get in the paint on. Now, they lost a player, too. They lost Olivier Camois, but they've gone small at times. They've played 2 big guys at times, but their guards are really good. Santiago Vescovi is one of the best guards in the country, left-hander, really talented, good passer. They really played 2 point guards with Kennedy Chandler. And I think they're starting to score more efficiently. That's always been sort of the knock on Tennessee the last couple of years is, man, they can really guard you, but they get stuck offensively. And I don't think they do this year, at least not as much. They did against Texas Tech. I had that game, and people said it was like watching paint dry. And I said, no, it was like watching dried paint chip because neither team could score. but they're scoring much more efficiently now.
All right, we get you out of here on this. Number 1, Gonzaga plays at number 23, St. Mary's. Gonzaga, I believe, is unanimous in the poll as the number 1 team. Is St. Mary's, or Jay, let's widen it out, is anyone especially equipped to beat Gonzaga?
Not in the West Coast Conference, and this is one of the best years the West Coast Conference has ever had. I mean, St. Mary's, BYU, San Francisco are all tournament-quality teams, but Gonzaga is so much better, and that's not a knock on the other teams. They're legit. But Gonzaga is so much better. And Chet Holmgren, their superstar freshman, has improved leaps and bounds over the course of the year. So I think Gonzaga is a much better team than played Duke out in Vegas earlier in UCLA. And they beat UCLA, lost to Duke. and they're not as good as they were last year, but last year was an extraordinary team that was undefeated going into the final. But Gonzaga, I think, is the best offensive team, and I'm not sure that's a close call. If their defense continues to get better, and it has, they're legit. They're good enough to cut the nets down. All this stuff about, oh, they play in a smaller conference, and of course they're going to win their conference games, that's nonsense. Because you look at their tournament record over the last 10 years, and very few teams, if any, can match it. Gonzaga is the real deal and has been for a long time.
Thank you, Jay, as always. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Jay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You can catch more of Jay tomorrow on College Game Day from Waco. Let's take one last break, but still to come have Kyler Murray and the Cardinals really mended their relationship. Time, people. Happy 59th birthday, Paul O'Neill. The Yankees just announced they would retire O'Neill's number 21 at a ceremony on August 21st. Wilbon slammed this decision, saying O'Neill didn't deserve it. I will point out that O'Neill is now a Yankee broadcaster, so he's family to a degree. In his 9 years as a Yankee outfielder, O'Neill batted .303, had 185 homers, 858 RBI. He won the batting title in 1994 at .359. He was a four-time All-Star, and most importantly, O'Neill was on 4 World Series champions. Now, he's not Ruther Gehrig. I concede he's the most questionable of the 23 Yankees with retired numbers. But as a Yankee, Mike, he was quite good.
I know, I should shut up. I was dead wrong. Tony, not only that, he is more than just sort of maybe family. He's been a broadcaster there with the Yes Network for 20 years. And that's what the Yankees and Celtics do. By the way, the Yankees just won up the Celtics. Celtics have 1 fewer number retired now that the Yankees have retired O'Neill's. It's something like 23-22. That's crazy. But look, those franchises have earned the right to do whatever they want without criticism from me. Wilbon, shut up.
The Yankees just pulled a Rafa Nadal by going 1 up on retired numbers.
That's right.
A not-so-happy anniversary to Manu Ginobili's shoe. Around this day 8 years ago, long before anybody had heard of Zion Williamson, Ginobili planted his left foot and his shoe exploded. All you see as he walks to the sideline is his sock. Ginobili's up for the Hall of Fame this year. He had a very distinguished career. Before he came from Argentina at age 25 to play for the Spurs, Ginobili was a 2-time EuroLeague scoring champion. He played 16 years in San Antonio, scored 13 points a game, and was on 4 NBA champions with Tim Duncan and Tony Parker. He also led Argentina to the gold medal in the 2004 Olympics.
Tony, straight to the Hall of Fame. A finalist into the Hall of Fame. And Tony Parker, both of them. Ginobili, an underrated great athlete, great teammate. I was wondering whether they should have gotten more votes for top 75 of all time. He and Parker didn't reach that, but man, their greatness. Is San Antonio ever going to see anything like that again with those guys twinned in that backcourt?
No. Happy trails to tension between Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. A week or so ago, the news was that Murray had scrubbed the Cardinals from his Instagram account and was posing in his old Oklahoma jersey and an Oakland A's jersey, suggesting he was interested in playing baseball. The tea leaves seemed to read that Murray wanted out of Arizona. But the news now is that Cardinals owner Michael Bidwill is all in on Murray, telling 98.7 FM in Arizona that Murray is, quote, part of our long-term plan, unquote, and saying, quote, put me in the corner of I love him, unquote. Plus, there's now a picture of Kyler Murray in a Cardinals uniform on his Instagram account, and the NFL Network is reporting that Murray and the Cardinals are working on a long-term deal.
Yeah, you can take the viewpoint that this is going to be that easy to reverse. I ain't taking that. I got to see what happens on the field, particularly late in seasons when he's not been very good.
All right, let's go to the big finish. Eric
Let's do it.
will return to the Chiefs as offensive coordinator. Does that make sense?
Maybe not for him. No matter how good he is at it, nobody seems to want to hire him. I don't know how that works for him